are today. It's November 30th, Friday. Happy Friday. And we're on the Agriculture Show with Jonael Bosques. Jonael, how you doing, bud?
I am good. I've been staring at this computer for the past week, but we're good.
I know you like to be out and about in the field.
Yeah, it's reporting time for us, and it's a lot of work, but we got it done.
Good to hear, man. Today's show is going to be on something interesting. And Jonael did some hunting for us, but he couldn't find it for us. But today's show is going to be about internal parasites in cattle. Wait for it. Oh. There we go.
Okay.
So
We're live, right?
yeah, we're good to go, man. So internal parasites. Obviously, this is something that affects cattle, and you guys do your best to make sure these animals are healthy all the time for the best production.
Yes, sir.
What
Yes,
do you got
sir.
for us?
Yeah. Well, when you when you go in a store or you listen to commercials on the radio or on the TV, there's a word that's very common that these people use. It's called natural.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that before? All natural, whatever, chicken, shampoo,
Yeah,
shoe.
I've seen all kinds of stuff, man, and these days it's so hard to figure out what the heck is real and what's not.
Yeah, that's an empty claim. Naturally, we would be walking barefoot hunting animals, and right now in Florida, it's the 48 hours of fall weather that we do have, and everybody's cold, and you would be shivering or you huddle it in front of a fire or something. So naturally, what happens naturally, it's very important that we have that concept, pretty clear. So if you're worried about all these chemicals and all this bombardment of media hype, let's talk about that word natural for a second.
Okay.
Which, what is it anyway?
I was gonna ask.
Naturally,
That's exactly what I was gonna ask. Okay.
if you were going to eat a piece of meat or a carrot or romaine lettuce, for example, there would be a big chance that you would contract a parasite or a bug that would dehydrate you and you probably die. Okay, but luckily for us, we live in the 21st century and we do have a lot of chemicals that are good for cattle
Mm-hmm.
and good for humans. As a secondary effect, and we do have that advantage over our ancestors. Okay, so the myth of today would be that chemicals are bad, that dewormers
Oh boy.
are bad for cattle, bad for you, and the all natural grazing system, it's better. Well, if you're a cow like the ones on the video, it is not. Okay, because you would be battling blood sucking insects inside your body at the same time that you're trying to put weight on your calf if you were a cow,
Gotcha.
and at the same time battling heat stress and all that good stuff trying to survive. So the advancements in science, epidemiology, chemistry, and all that good stuff have provided us with a bunch of nice products that cattlemen use responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
Now they have to, more science means more information. They use them responsibly in most cases, in the vast majority of cases, to provide those animals with a good, healthy setting, immune system, and ways to develop into a finished animal that we can then take to slaughter and then harvest. Okay.
Gotcha.
So if we didn't have those chemistry, those dewormers in this case, we're going to talk about internal parasites.
Okay.
What would happen? We would then have problems efficiently growing animals. Okay. And if you remember, in previous show we talked about the history of where we are in Florida. This is the heartland. There's a lot more cows than people here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the culture. The culture is there because we could easily put weights on an animal with just based in grass in grazing grass in Florida, and that's why we have this culture here, and that's very important. If you are a producer and you're not keeping up with your animal health, then you're running into situations. So animal health, it's necessary. Okay.
Of course.
So that's your dog, I guess.
Yeah. They don't
That's
like
not
the
my
mailman.
dog. Anyway, so dewormers are important. Monitoring the health of those animals, it is important. Um, Efficiency in resources is important as well.
Of course.
So we have an army of people growing food for you, and they're doing the best that they can for those animals using this type of technology.
Okay.
So
Let me just jump in here real quick because why do you think people forget that it's like people think that we're just like we're gonna be okay, like let's just let's forget about all the advances in science and in technology and just try to go natural, like we don't have like we have some sort of like defense against parasites, which we don't. Obviously these the measures that you guys take is to prevent that from happening to us beforehand, before it actually happens. But people just like, no, go natural, go natural, go natural. But like, what do they even know? Like, why do they?
I have no idea. Well, I do have an idea. You fear what you don't know. It's like when you were moving from Wachula to St. Pete, you're kind of fearing that change because you don't know what's ahead of you. That's the same thing as fear of the unknown, of the unexplained, and that's what we're trying to do here, trying to explain what happens
Awesome. Okay.
with the warmers, with internal parasites, and also why we use this technology. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes,
I
it
hope
makes
it makes
sense.
sense.
Now, now, can you tell me what natural means in the stores?
It doesn't have a definition. The USDA does not give a definition for the words natural or all natural. There's no confines of what that means. So it's an empty claim. Okay, if there's anything in your grocery pantry or your shelves that says natural, you can throw it away. No, I'm just kidding. You just pay for that.
So the person that came up with it was somebody in a marketing department, maybe.
Somebody that naturally was smarter than most of us.
That naturally wanted to line their pockets a little bit.
And yes, naturally needed to make a profit. And yes, and that's why natural does not mean anything. Okay.
Okay.
So going back to cows, average daily gain is very important. That just means the amount of feed that goes in the animal that actually makes it all the way into muscle, meat, or fiber in case of sheep and goats and stuff like that get harvested for their fiber.
Okay.
So that is very important. The more the efficiency in the animal, the sooner that animal is going to be ready for market, the less impact, ecologic impact that animal is going to have in the land. So that's why we genetically select animals that are more efficient. We also implement some practices that make our herd more efficient. And if you have internal parasites, then you're going to have a bunch of little blood-sucking worms in your stomach, or not in your stomach, but in their cow stomach, sucking the blood, the proteins that animal has harvested from grass, and that makes it a lot less efficient. Okay.
Okay.
So that's why it's important to have that point very, very clear, respecting the science. We need in Florida dewormers, and monitoring for parasite loads is very important as well, especially if you're trying to make a profit. Okay.
Of course.
So those daily gains are important. Those internal parasites need to be characterized, need to be identified, need to be treated. It's an animal welfare situation, and also it's a decision that will make you more or less money. So what I have in the back here, it's a kit. Okay, it's a fecal sample that I collected this morning.
You have a
If
very
anybody's
glamorous
hungry,
job.
there's some brownies for you.
Oh yeah,
It's
super
fresh
brownies.
poop, okay? Fresh cow poop.
They look a little dry,
Uh,
man.
yeah, I have. Do you have that video of this morning me walking in the pasture? So
Yeah.
that's evidence based. So what I'm doing is that I was trying to hunt some fecal eggs from these parasites. That was here in Sulphur Springs this morning.
Hmm.
Uh, I was collecting those samples for you from three different cows in the pasture that just pooped. Okay, so that poop was warm. That's fresh brownies there for you.
There you go.
So I was trying to look for eggs. Okay, so we do. I used to do work for a veterinarian, and we used to do fecal egg counts for dogs and cats, and it's the same thing that we do for cows and other animals. So I go in there, I take a sample, I put it in this fecal flotation solution. Okay,
Fecal flotation solution.
that's
Okay.
the sample right there. Uh, it's pretty disgusting.
Well,
You
someone's got to
don't
do
drink
it.
it. So you pipette a little bit of that in the. This is a Mac Master slide, and that slide goes in a microscope. Okay, this is what the veterinarian or the vet techs would do. So you would monitor the insides of that content. Okay,
Hmm.
that little thing has different fields of vision, and this is what we're looking at right now. This is my monitor because we couldn't find a way to share the monitor.
There you go. Okay, what are we looking at here? That's
That
the.
is the microscope version of it. Or
Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh,
okay, I don't know if how good that looks.
it's viewable. It looks like the surface of the moon right
Yeah,
now.
there's a lot of material in there.
Hmm.
So that solution, it's supposed to make everything or the eggs of parasites float. There's one little thing right here that looks like a parasite egg right there. It should be still, by the way. I'm not saying that was a parasite egg. I'm just looking for that oval shaped uh, uh, entity in there, whatever. And we have pollen eggs, sorry, pollen or mite eggs that look like something. Uh, Over here, you have something else going that looks, foreign. A lot of what you see in here is going to be grass and skin cells from the inside of the cow. Okay.
Gotcha.
So anyway, it's a process that you can determine the load of parasite infection in here. Okay.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to go through and talk about that. I was just going to just mention that pretty quickly.
Gotcha.
What you're looking for, let me, okay, yeah,
And you're
up
back.
here. It's the presence of these eggs, okay? Those are
Oh, okay, gotcha. The
arms.
shapes.
Yeah, those are the different shapes that you're looking for. If you're a cattle producer, you can do this with a microscope with training, okay? Or you can go to a veterinarian, and that veterinarian would work with you and give you a fecal analysis report, so that way you decide if you have to deworm this herd or not, okay?
Yeah. Gotcha. Gotcha.
So there's all these parasites that are very very uh, aggressive in the way that they reproduce. Some nematodes that produce like 3,000 eggs a day. Um, so they suck blood, and that makes it inefficient. Can you go to that PDF file? This is a university publication that I shared with Art, so you can see it from University of Arkansas. I'm going to go through the life cycle. Uh, so the first thing that happens is that you introduce a an animal that's infected to your herd. that animal or wildlife or whatever, or you bought a new piece of property and there were eggs in there, parasite eggs. Those eggs hatch after being ejected from the body of the infected animal. They go into the grass or into the soil. In the soil, they hatch. Okay, they hatch. They turn into a larvae. So it's a small little parasite. That larvae molts two times. So that infective larvae is the L3, which is the larval stage number three. In most cases, that larvae has the ability to climb up into the leaf blade and wait for a cow to eat it. It gets ingested. That ingestion then makes that animal, uh, you know, get the parasites or parasites in the cow. That larvae will then molt again and turn eventually into an adult. That adult then is going to start mating with their neighbors and start the cycle over and over and over again.
Gotcha.
So things that they need to survive is going to be moisture, and in Florida we do have a lot of moisture. Okay, um, and it'll depends on the species that you have. Uh, how long they will survive in the soil or not. So it'll depend on the temperature as well. It'll depend on the presence or absence of fungi that would or other natural enemies that would consume the larvae or the eggs or the adults. And also, it'll depend on the management that you provide for your animals. Okay,
Mhm.
so it's a situation that we do have to monitor in Florida. If you are a hobby farmer or if you are new to having cattle, this is important information. Okay, a lot of us go in an auction barn, or neighbor has a cow that we like, and we do transactions that way. Uh, so we usually buy more than cows. We buy cows loaded with parasites, or goats, or sheep, or whatever. It is that's what we do. We don't know everything. So that's something to closely monitor when we buy animals. Okay.
Mhm.
So we see variability in the way that there are some animals that are more prone to having issues with parasites than others. It doesn't mean that your herd is going to have more or less issues. It's just that some animals are more susceptible and show more signs of weakness and issues with coping with the environment than others. Um, so genetics is important to just selecting those animals that are easy keepers,
Mhm.
the ones that have a superior adaptability than the ones that are weaker. Um, so that's very important. The other thing is that there's some animals. With that said, the genetics is important because there's some animals that are just weak and they're never gonna do good, even if you treat them, like royalty, they'll still get sick. Those animals you don't need. Those animals need to be somebody else's problem. So calling is very important. Getting rid of those animals is very important. Okay, so around here, people deworm animals in the dry season and then before the rainy season, so two times a year. I was looking at the information from a paper from the University of Florida. There's no advantage in actually deworming, according to this veterinarian. Uh, he said that there was no advantage in deworming in the winter time, but there was an advantage of deworming in in the springtime, just before the rainy season around May.
Is it because of
Uh,
the moisture or something, or?
just because of the moisture,
Okay.
getting rid of those adults having less of a shedding situation, it reduces the chances of reinfection. Okay,
Gotcha. Okay. Makes
but
sense.
people around here do it twice a year, once in the fall and once in the spring.
Do you want
Uh,
me to? Do you want me to run this impact comparison video for you?
yeah. That's a nice little video. Um, so we have the need for using these dewormers again. We're
Mm-hmm.
battling nature. Naturally, man will fight for survival, and the more parasites, again, I have to say it, reemphasize this again, the more control you have over your setting, the more efficient you can be, the cheaper you're going to produce that meat and that milk and that fiber. So that's one of the things that is highly recommended is just to control for parasites. Okay. I'm not endorsing any product. This is just a nice video that I found on NCBA. I want you to look at the cows and the cattlemen and not at the drugs. I just want something in the background to
Nice. Good disclaimer.
to keep you excited about this topic. So um, there's different products, different dewormers. Some of them are drenched, so they're giving orally.
Yeah.
Some of them are injectable. Some of them are pour-ons, so they go in the back of the animal. So they all have different chemistries, and I would work with a veterinarian to
Mm-hmm.
see what your parasite load is, what's the recommendation on how on your specific region on what you need to use for controlling. Do not ask your neighbor. Do not ask your feed store owner.
Oh man. Yeah.
Go with a veterinarian that knows what's happening in the area. Okay.
I think,
Uh,
and speaking of like the injections, I think that's one of the reasons that people see this as a bad thing because nobody likes getting shots. And then
mhm.
whenever their food starts getting shots and chemicals and whatnot, they think of it as a negative thing. But in reality, it's come on now, it's to make it healthier.
Yeah, it's necessary. There's another way to add dewormer, which is a feed-based dewormer. So there's a lot of different products out there that you can use. And again, consult with your vet.
Mm-hmm.
They
The
know better.
specialist.
They're supposed to know what's effective in your area. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And they're better than anybody. It doesn't matter how good you are at Google. These guys are the experts. They're trained. So
Yes. Well,
they know.
Google doesn't localize things, and veterinarians have
Oh,
the experience that they go in the ground,
yeah,
they work on the area, they know what's the dominant species of whatever parasite you have.
yeah. All the variations. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Aside from that, controlling your grazing is important. Two things: when you bring an animal into your farm, have a sacrifice paddock or a hospital pen or a quarantine area where you deworm those animals before they go into the regular population. Okay, so the general population. That way, your parasites are going to stay. Most of them are going to stay in one spot instead of that animal just rolling in and infecting everything. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Continuous grazing versus rotational grazing. It's there's a huge difference. You're going to have better results if you have a rotational grazing situation, um, because those animals are going to have a limit to how much and how uh, how low they can graze those leaves. Okay, and that has a huge impact on the parasite load as well, because I don't know if you remember when that infective larvae climbs up the leaf, it can only climb up to a certain point. Some of them climb up to 3 4 inches. Some of them climb up to 10 11 inches. It depends on the parasite. It depends on the forage base that you have. The longer the blade,
Mm-hmm.
the better the chance that that animal runs out of gas and dies. Okay,
Oh,
and doesn't
gotcha.
infect. So on Bahia grass, or forage height is very important. Bermuda grass, perennial peanut, we have recommendations for that. You start grazing Bahia grass at 6 inches. You quit grazing it at 2. If you have a parasite problem, I would then would stop grazing probably 3 or 4 inches. So you're gonna have to have different products for those animals to migrate to. So you let that grass rest, and get that mass. So it's another barrier that you can use to control your parasites.
Wow,
Around here, go ahead.
no, that's pretty. I had no idea. There's so many factors that we don't know about. As an average consumer, I'm an average consumer. I
Hmm.
had no idea. Like keeping the grass at a certain height wasn't for I mean, I thought it was just whatever. You guys handle your grass, but I mean, it's for parasite control. That's
Hmm.
amazing. You guys
Some of
are.
it is for parasite control.
That's amazing.
There's other factors there, and we can talk about rotational grazing in another time.
Hmm.
A lot of what I see with my previous job, I used to work in the Ocala area. A lot of those horse people, horse owners, like to mow their pastures like they were lawns, and that is actually a problem when it comes to parasite management. If you mow it too low, then you're gonna have a bunch of issues. Hermothria is a common forage here in South Florida. It thrives on wet grounds, or partially wet ground. That one, look at the difference. Remember, start grazing Bahia at 6 and remove the animals at 2. This one needs to start. The recommendation for keeping the Hermothria is to start grazing it when it's 24 inches long, so 2 feet, and then quit grazing it when it's 10 inches in height. So, a huge difference depending on your stand, depending on your forage. So if I was a producer, um, and I had a problem with animals that are not thriving, that look rough, first thing I would do, I would contact the veterinarian, see if we can characterize what's happening.
Hmm.
Deworming is very important, regardless of the type of operation that you have. Uh, you have to selectively deworm the animals that you want to keep, and call the ones that you don't need.
Yeah.
Uh, have somebody else take care of them. Get rid of them,
Hmm.
and then that way you can build your herd uh, immunity, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
Uh, because cows can eventually they will create immunities to fight this parasites eventually.
Gotcha. And this
Um,
this is much different than worming your pets, obviously,
mhm,
because cows are a food source, so it's very
yeah.
important. You know.
And then some of these parasites that are talking about pets that infect pets also infect people. Okay.
Mm,
Some
very
of these
true.
parasites that we're talking about are specifically for ruminants, but there are some that also infect people. So anyway, so that's what I was going to talk about today. If you have more questions on this, just type up something under this video, and hopefully we can answer that question.
Hmm.
Uh, the monsters inside you are not the topic of discussion today, so don't be gross. I've seen some videos of people on YouTube talking about how they treated their own intestinal parasites. This is just for cows, people. Okay, just.
There you go. Yeah, you're getting good at those disclaimers, man. You've had
Mhm.
experience with that before. All right.
Yeah, but if you have any questions on this topic, if you want to share with somebody that has a few cows and has had problems, go ahead and do it. That's what we're doing for. We want to make it as informational, as educational as possible.
Hmm.
Um, and we want to promote extension. We want to promote science-based information that is unbiased. That's what we do. We're public scientists that work for the public, that receive our salaries from tax dollars. So we're responsible for providing you a transparent basis. Okay. I know that there were some name brands in some of those videos. Um, that's just random. I don't get money from any chemical company. I get money from the taxpayer, which is you.
Yeah, we don't make we get high fives for doing this, and we're happy with it.
Yeah, yeah. I like to go back and look at the videos. Um, so anyway, I want to keep this short. Hardee County Extension Office, there's the number 863-773-2164. You can visit us. You can go on Facebook and like our Facebook page, share it with others, ask questions. Um, if you're in another state, I would encourage you to go to your local extension office. There's an extension office in every county, or just about every county in the nation. And if they don't have livestock agents, they will probably have a livestock specialist that can answer your questions.
There we go. So go see Jonael and in Hardee County. And like you said, if not, there's other extensions. So, and again, they're here to help you guys out. Let's not let's kill these crazy fake news things like the whole natural thing and all that, and just promote science and facts.
Yeah, yeah, that's what we're here for.
Yes, sir. All right, man. You have a good weekend. All right.
Sir, thank you for listening and tuning in, and hopefully this will pay off somehow.
Any comments, shares? Just feel free, guys. We're here. All right. You guys have a great weekend.
Bye.